Okay, so good morning or good evening or good afternoon, everyone. And today we're going to present about the political economic of trade, and this is in chapter 5. So before we present it, we want to introduce ourselves first. So first we have Benedict Adrian and Yeremia Habakuk, it's me myself, and Zelika Putri. So we get what we will get in this chapter. Uh, We begin in this chapter by considering different approaches to the political economic of trade, including country-based, factor-based, sector-based, and firm-based. Then we're going to revisit the model of comparative advantage developed in chapter 3. So we're going to uh, remember a little bit about the chapter 3, and we will consider the role of factors of production in comparative advantage as described by the Hexter-Ohlin model of trade and take up the associate Stobel-Samuelson theorem. Then we will examine the application of this theorem to the topic of North-South trade. Then finally, we're going to consider the role of sectors in the specific factors model of the political economic of trade. Then we will going to discuss about the approach to the political economic of trade. So right here we have the table, already have the table. We have our 5 different approaches or 5 different focus. First one is the focus is country based, name is realism, and the insight is there are security externalized associated with international trade that need to be managed by country governments. Second focus is country based. It's still country based, but the name is different. It's institutionalism, and the insight is institutionalism with structures within country government affect trade policy outcomes. And the third focus is factor-based. Uh, Name is Hexter-Ohlin model, Stobel-Samuelson theorem. It says under factory mobility within a country, different factors can win or lose from increased trade. And the fourth focus is sector-based. Name is specific factors model, and inside is which sector specific factors, whether factors win or lose, can depend on whether there are specifics to an export or import oriented sector. And the last one, firm-based focus. Name is firm, yes, still firm-based. Inside is two. The exposure of firms to trade or international capital mobility can influence the posture of these firms to trade in liberalization. So okay, that's all from me. The next presenter will be Adrian.
So hello guys. Now I will explain about the comparative advantage again that already explained in the last few weeks. So it takes with the same example in Vietnam and Japan that economies move from the autarky to trade and production in each country expand in the direction of the sector in which it was comparative advantage. So this is the graph as you can see. It moved from the A to B along the production possibility frontiers in the graph below. Rice production expand in Vietnam and motorcycle production expand in Japan. The purpose of the chapter is to analyze the processes much more carefully. So the next one, I will explain about the trade factors and of the production. Vietnam, relatively land abundant. By this, we mean that ratio of the land to physical capital is larger in Vietnam than in Japan. The relative abundance of land gives Vietnam a comparative advantage in producing the land-intensive good. Example is rice. And then Japan is relative capital abundant. By this, we mean that the ratio of physical capital land is larger than Japan than in Vietnam. This relative abundance of the capital gives Japan comparative advantage in producing the capital-intensive good. For example, it's motorcycle. As you can see in the picture below, is the two is the motorcycle produced in Japan and the two picture of the Vietnam rice farmer. Okay, then in this slide, I will explain about this diagram. In this, you can see a country export the good whose production is intensive in abundant factor. Its import the good whose production is intensive in scarce factor. As a country move from autarky to trade, the country's abundant factor of the production gains, whereas the country's scarce factors of production loses. Opposition to trade or demand for protection therefore arises from scarce factor of production. From the tables, you can see there's Vietnam and Japan. Vietnam is a relative land abundant and Japan is relative capital abundant. The next two boxes concern the pattern of the comparative advantage. Vietnam have advantage in rice because the land intensive. Japan has the comparative advantage in motorcycle because the capital intensive. The third level of boxes concern the trade flows. In accordance with the pattern of the comparative advantage, Vietnam export rice to Japan and Japan export motorcycle to Vietnam. In Vietnam, the comparative advantage in rice causes an increase in the output of rice and expense of motorcycle. Consequently, there is an increase in demand for land and decrease in demand for the physical capital. This factor demand changes have the result that landowners in Vietnam gain from trade, whereas Vietnam capital owners lose from the trade. And for Japan, the comparative advantage in motorcycle caused an increase in the output of motorcycle at the expense of rice. Consequently, there is an increase in the demand for the physical capital and a decrease in the demand for land. These changes caused Japan capital owners to gain from trade and Japan land owners to lose from the trade. That is all for my presentation. And next will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
So here I will continue my friend explanation about the North-South trade and wages. So in application of the Stolper Samuelson, this is the question of the North-South trade and wages. The term North refers to the high income or developed countries of the world, whereas the term South refers to the low and middle income or developing country of the world. High income countries tend to be relatively capitally abundant, whereas developing countries tend to be relatively labor abundant. Next, so it's not introduction, sorry.